if you're just like bearing through it, like you're like, oh, this pain has just become bearable and you've kind of forgotten that it hurts. It's like maybe there is a boundary there, and there's probably a blister that you're rubbing and you're rubbing it, but you just choose to not do anything about it.
Hey there, this is Unburdened by Hope, the podcast that helps you harness your possibility and fuel your purpose. I'm your host, Erin Cummings. Here we're breaking free from the chains of hope and unlocking the power of inspiration within. Get ready to ignite your soul because we're diving deep into the art of letting go, embracing the unknown, and creating a life unburdened by the limitations of hope. Together, we'll uncover the secrets to finding purpose, fueling our passions, and crafting a vibrant existence that sets our hearts on fire. So, are you ready to burn down what's no longer serving you and step into a life driven by possibility? Let's dive in, my friends, and unleash our boundless potential.
Welcome to podcast episode number 18. We're like at the end of October. How is that even? Wow, that's insane. Yeah, I want to talk about something spooky and oh, not really. This week, I'd love to hear how your 3 Ps worked out for you last week. But yeah, this week it is kind of funny. Like, it's not really fear or any of that related, but I guess it can be. I want to talk about how scary it is that things can become so bearable to the point that like we don't really notice how painful of what's like really going on. And I'm gonna use just like really simple, easy analogy that like if you wear shoes and rub blisters, you will understand. Most likely, if you're a woman who wears heels at any point in her life, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I bought these like super trendy, cute little sneakers that I'm like obsessed with. And I thought, I've worn them a couple of times. And the first time I wore them, my husband and I were walking through the airport and they were rubbing the back of my ankles so bad. Literally, like I had put them on to get to the airport, worn them through security, and we were walking to our gate and I couldn't even make it from like security to our gate, and I had to change my shoes. They were rubbing a blister on the back of my feet so bad. And I was like super bummed, and I also like to think, so because I have ADHD, we're gonna do like a long way around here. So I also would like to reiterate. I don't think I've ever told you, or maybe y'all know. I don't know. So I used to dance ballet pretty extensively as a kid up until I actually danced up until college. I took a break for a little bit in high school, but I danced on like the dance team. It's called something else here in Texas. It's very weird. Texas has its own Texas has its own stuff. But yeah, so I danced ballet and then did point. So it's like, when you stand on your toes, for those of you who are not familiar. Like cliche, the Nutcracker, Swan Lake. We did lots of like Romeo and Juliet, Sleeping Beauty, Degas, all of those things. If you're familiar with ballet at all, you're like, yeah. So point is pretty intense. And if you're not familiar with a point shoe, which most of you probably aren't, if you've never put your feet in point shoes. So at where your toes are, there's a thing called a toe box, and it's like a square, I don't know, it's like a square front where your toes go. And then obviously you have like a very, very minimal sole of the shoe. And then you have like where the heel is. And for the most part, the entire exterior of the shoe is like a satin base. And the toe box is basically like, the best way to describe it is like paper mache. And so there's like these layers of like paper, it's like canvasy kind of stuff. And that's like what you stand on. So there's not like a memory foam or a cushion or any of that like in the toe box. It is like if you know someone who's a professional ballerina, and you see their feet, you're like, dear God, because it is excruciating at first, and then the pain becomes bearable. So you rub lots of like blisters and calluses, and those are what end up helping protect your feet. And you can wrap your feet and you can add the padding. They used to have these like gel inserts when I was dancing, that were really awesome, I guess, if you want to call them that. But the more broken in your shoes are, as any other shoe, the more comfortable they are. And so eventually, like your sweat and all that kind of stuff, like ends up helping you in the long run stand on your toes. So I had dancer's feet for a really long time, still somewhat do, as far as like I can easily create a callus, which is like, wow, what a skill. But I normally don't have like a shoe problem. And I think that's the thing is like for me to rub a blister, it's usually in BD, like no big deal. If I rub a blister, like who cares, whatever, it's a bearable blister, like nothing. What are you talking about? So, all of that entire story to say, the fact that I took my sneakers off, my stylish sneakers off, mid walking to the gate from security, like mid walk from security to the gate at the airport to take my sneakers off, means that the rubbing on the back of my foot became so unbearable. I couldn't take it anymore. And then, like, we went about our trip. I wore the shoes again one day, thinking, like, oh, maybe they're a little bit more broken in. And then, same thing, rub, rub, rub on the back. This one created an open flesh wound. That was super exciting. Um, Hit up the front desk for some band aids. Thanks so much. And then that's the other thing. You put a band aid on, and for me, it becomes bearable again. So then it's like, oh, now I have this like little cushion here and it's not touching. So fast forward to we went on another trip because clearly we like to travel. And at this point, these shoes are like pretty well broken in, like for my feet, except for still that same spot on the back of my ankle. Well, I have now decided that to make the pain be bearable without rubbing an extra blister, but it's just like basically my ankles are like the back of my ankles are just like raw dogging it. And but I realized if I wear like a tall grandpa sock with my shoes, then it's not so bad. And the pain becomes bearable. And eventually it's like, I noticed it, but not really. And so that's what I did. And I ended up wearing my sneakers like all weekend. And yeah, like it kind of hurt, kind of didn't, kind of noticed it every once in a while. But I also like, I think that that is such a huge, honest to God metaphor for like asking yourself where you just like kind of bearing with it. You know what I mean? Like, where you just like, you know, the pain is there and you're just like not dealing with it. And you're like, oh, well, if I just wear a tall sock, it'll be fine. No one will know. I can just deal with it. It's just, it's bearable. It's enough to make me like keep going. And maybe it's not like, you know, there's certain things that like we have to bear, like if it's like especially like if you're like mourning the loss of something, like you should be, you know, like dealing with that. But I think like, is it your job? Is it your relationships? Like, is it your friendships? Is it the way you're waking up and dealing with like the first 2 hours of your day? Is it like has school drop off, is it become so painful that it's just like every morning it's like, oh my God, this is so painful, but I'm just like, I'm doing it anyway. And it's like, why are you just like, how has that truly become a bearable issue? You know what I mean? Or a bearable thing. Like you're like, oh yeah, I mean, it's totally sucks. It's totally painful. We're late every day and I yell at my kids every morning, but you know what? It's fine. And so I think like this week, as you're moving through your week, it's like asking yourself, what's the blister I'm almost rubbing because I refuse to deal with it. And that's the thing. It's like I keep wearing these shoes, like hoping that my feet aren't gonna hurt. And it's like, hi, fuck hope. Erin, your feet are gonna hurt. Wear the grandpa socks and you can kind of take it and it'll be fine. But I think that's the thing. It's like, where in your life right now are you choosing to just like create the blister instead of like either adding a sock or actually dealing with the problem at hand? And that could be as simple as having a conversation with someone, like creating a boundary. Like this is also, I feel like, such a great metaphor for like why a boundary is important. Like, hey, wear socks. They're helpful in so many ways. Except not really. Socks honestly annoy me. Except for in these certain situations. But I do think that this is a great, like, if you're just like bearing through it, like you're like, oh, this pain has just become bearable and you've kind of forgotten that it hurts. It's like maybe there is a boundary there and there's probably a blister that you're rubbing and you're rubbing it, but you just choose to not do anything about it. And so as you're going throughout the week, you can't just hope that no blister's going to show up because it will. Like, it will. I know when I wear those shoes, a blister's coming, but I choose to wear them anyway. I choose to deal with the pain. I'm choosing the pain in this instance. And so I wonder, like, I mean, I can think of off the top of my head a situation that I don't want to say, but it's like, I'm clearly like dealing with it instead of just like doing something about it. But it's interesting because my therapist and I talk about it a lot, and I'm like, it's funny because she always asks me like, well, what if that just happens? And it's like, well, we talked about last week, reverse outcome, worst case scenario. Well, what if that just happens? Like, what if what if I never wore those shoes again? You know what I mean? Like, worst possible outcome, I just don't wear the shoes. And then it's like, well, I wasted my money, but yeah, now I don't have the potential for a blister. And you know, trendy shoes are just that. They're trendy. So the super comfortable ones they never seem to be trendy, do they? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's funny that I was kind of talking to her about something similar to this. And then I was thinking about my shoes earlier and I was reading the Daily Stoic. I absolutely love Ryan Holiday and all of his stuff. And he had made a quote about something similar in his book. And I just thought it was so interesting. And I'm like, oh my God, like those are my shoes. Like at first it really hurts. And then eventually pain over time becomes bearable. But I just am choosing not to do anything about it. I'm choosing just to like continue to wear my shoes. And I wondered, like, oh, okay, like what am I in so much pain about in my life that I'm just continuing to wear my shoes over and over again instead of like actually doing something about it. And so I'm working on that now. I mean, I think there's, stuff that we can all work through and I'm working through it as well. And, I kind of had a crappy week a few weeks ago and it was just like, yeah, then that week, like when I was super frazzled and I made the podcast about the 3 Ps, like that was like this. It was like the pain had become like, it was at first, it was like super painful. And then the pain had become bearable. And then I had a reminder and rubbed a blister. And it was just like, boom, there it is. There it is. How can I remove the shoes? So as you're moving through your week this week, like look for those kind of pain points and see, like where is it showing up that you are rubbing a blister that you shouldn't be. You just need to like take your shoes off and put a new pair on. So, but like in your real life, not your actual feet. I hope we're clear on that, right? Like this was a podcast about shoes, but also not. Oh my God. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of October. I guess, was the podcast scary? It wasn't. We just talked about feet. Like, I guess, I don't know. We didn't see any feet, which is great, but we talked about them. So maybe that's scary in itself. I don't know. I hope you have an amazing, if you go trick-or-treating, be safe, have fun, post your pictures of your kids. I always love seeing all my friends and their kids like all dressed up for Halloween. I think it's so fun to see everyone's like what their kids, picked out and what they want to be. So I'm excited to see all of yours stuff. But yeah, stay courageous, capable, and strong. Have super fun on Halloween, and I will talk to you in November. What in the world? Yeah, November, here we come. So great. I will see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to Unburdened by Hope. Go to your favorite podcast app, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a review. If you've got something out of our show, I'd love to hear from you. Send me your favorite takeaway or any questions you may have to info@erincummings.com. You may even just hear the answer in a future episode. Remember, you are courageous, you are capable, you are strong. It's up to you to create what's possible.